IKEA is doing a new furniture buyback and lease program in the United States, starting at its Philadelphia store in the suburb of Conshohocken, which is why Chris gave me this story to read today. I mean, that's something not even like Kate Winslet from Mayor of Easttown could say correctly.
I think it's one of my favorite like city names of all time on Omni Talk, Conshohocken. Shout out to all the Conshohockenites out there.
I know. If that's even what they're called.
The loyal listeners. Watch our geography statistics on Omni Talk are going to blow up in Conshohocken this week.
Yes. Well, so IKEA is taking this program that they've already launched in other countries, including the UK. Which they're trying to say is really a move towards making their business more sustainable and climate positive. It's part of their initiative to do that by 2030. But what they're doing is allowing loyalty program customers to bring in used IKEA furniture. They trade it in at the store, they get a store credit, and then they're taking all the items that have been traded in and they'll put them in the as is section. So where all the other returns typically go, right by the extremely long IKEA lines. And then they'll put that out for sale. You can, use your credit on other resale furniture or anything in the IKEA store. Now, Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Are you big into the IKEA buyback program?
Yeah, I wish I was living in Conshohocken, Ann.
Oh,
I think this thing is huge. I got 3 words on this one. Look to Europe. Every retailer in the US should always look to Europe. Because why? Because they're smarter than us. I hate to say it, but they are. They just know how to live. When you buy an apartment as a European, what do you find? They're all furnished. And why? Because it makes no economic sense to rebuy furniture all the time when you're young. It just doesn't. And so I think this is going to be like click and collect. And if I do my math here, 2035 by the time the US market catches on. It's going to come, but knowing us, it's going to take a hell of a lot of time. But IKEA is already seeing success overseas. So I think this is a really cool idea. Kudos to them for trying it, seeing what happens over here in the US. It's going to happen. We've hypothesized for a long time that the furniture space is ripe for this because of that exact fact. This stuff is generally really expensive, and there's a lot of money to be saved on it over time if you think about it the right way. So I think it's great. What do you think, though? I mean, you're the one always scouring IKEA furniture on Facebook Marketplace and stuff.
Well, I think that it's another perfect example of a retailer smartly taking resale in-house. I think that there's still a high value to resold IKEA furniture. And if they can capture some of the revenue for that, there's very little risk for them outside of having to host the products in their store and make space for that. And I think after making a trek to IKEA, until we start to have more smaller urban stores that are outfit with the latest app that they're using in China right now, like you're going to leave with something. You're not going to leave IKEA empty-handed, even if it's a lingonberry soda, or you're just eating there because you're there. Like there's all advantage here to this. And I think that it could be really cool if IKEA even started to like gamify this, or they do like early before opening hours so that you like can just shop the as-is section on like a Saturday morning. Like we see here in Minneapolis with the room and board outlet. I mean, there's lines
like an
out
event,
there.
That thing.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here for IKEA to just like blow this up and people will be receptive to it.
That's a great point, Ann. Yeah, like I never thought about that. Like Conshohockenites probably have a new thing potentially to do on Conshohockenites probably have a new thing to do on a Saturday morning if you think about this the right way to create a whole event out of it and get even more traffic to the store. But hey, here's the thing. I think it brings up another interesting question. And I've got to put you on the spot question from A&M this week after what you guys did to me last week. And I think it's really interesting. And I think it's a perfect example of why I love the partnership with them too, because I think it adds an element that you don't get with other podcasts. And so, Ann, here's the question.
Okay.
IKEA is launching a buyback and resale program, follows in the footsteps of retailers like Lululemon, Urban Outfitters, who've launched their own resale platforms, whereas other retailers like Gap have partnered with companies like thredUP to do it a different way.
Yep.
Which model do you think results in more customer traffic conversion and ultimately sales in the long run? If you had to pick one, or can you?
Oh,
or do you think the answer depends?
I mean, I hate when people say depends, but I think there's a lot of.
I hate when people wear depends.
That's not something that
I mean, it's it's unfortunate. Yeah, God, you're right. You're right. That's terrible. That's true.
Wear your depends if you need to. People.
Yes, people. You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
So I think that it's just how you approach resale with your brand is a very nuanced thing that you have to think about what's going to be the best experience for your customer, and then what in turn will be most profitable for you. I think we look at the different examples that A&M gives here, and each of those are using a different platform. You have Lululemon and Patagonia, other retailers that are using Trove to take in the inventory. They're still holding on to the inventory and then putting that back in their stores, but maintaining that all under the brand umbrella.
Right.
Versus something like, a Gap who's participating with thredUP. They're going through thredUP. thredUP's owning the customer experience there, but taking in Gap apparel and other brands. Like, you're expanding that whole universe.
Right.
And then you have IKEA here, who's taking that in on their own. They're managing that all in house. I think that the best approach is probably to do what's simplest and easiest for the retailer to test this concept and to learn like where they need help and where they should be owning some of the resale platform.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's a definitive right answer here. And I feel like it's more like, especially given how hot this space, I feel it's like more in line with like what we spotlighted with Recurate the other day, where it's like the simplest and easiest way to get this is get the sellers that want to sell this stuff on your platform, reselling it them, let them own the relationship with the customer that they want to sell it to, let them build the credibility as the seller, and you take a cut of that transaction. Like, you're just basically facilitating the marketplace transaction. That's a really simple way for me to see how companies could do this and do it really successfully, or to test the waters in it.
Right.
Without, and sometimes the brand thing and worrying about the brand and all that, I think that gets blown out of proportion too, because the sellers can control that, if you understand and they have a good reputation too. So now furniture is a little bit of a different dynamic too, potentially. And, IKEA, and depending on how the experience you create around it too, like that sample sale idea was awesome. Like, I could see that playing into things differently. So I think you're right. It ultimately does depend on a lot of factors, but I think that is the smartest, simplest way to test it with the biggest impact right now.
Especially for, I think, startup brands too. I mean, if you look at IKEA's and
sure.
Lululemon, like, they want to get
Startup
people
brands,
into
100%.
the stores, where I think you're right. Recurate makes a ton of sense for some of those brands that maybe are building up and
brands.
are online only. Exactly. To make sure that they don't have to worry about getting to a fulfillment center, then getting to another customer. It makes a ton of sense.